Hello and welcome to the PocketGamer.biz podcast, Week in Mobile Games, where we discuss the week's news and provide some insights. Happy New Year, everybody. Glad to have you all back. And with me today is my two colleagues. So we've got Aaron Astle, our news editor, as always, and we have the return of our deputy editor, Paige Cook. Welcome back, Paige. Hope
Thank
you're
you.
doing well.
It's nice to be back. I forgot how to podcast, but it'll be fine.
Judging by the recording that no one else will hear, I'm also struggling to get back to the podcasting arena. But so how was your holidays? How was your New Year's, Paige? What have you been up to?
Yeah, it was nice. I had some family up for a couple of days at Christmas, which was lovely. Because a lot of the time it's just me and my partner, since none of us live local to our families. So it was nice to actually have some family with us. As much as it was lovely when it's like 3 days of hosting people, I was kind of ready to be like, it's been lovely seeing you. Bye. Like, social battery was very depleted, but no, it was really nice. And then New Year, we just did like a murder mystery thing that you can get on Amazon, but they're brilliant. Like, I'm obsessed with them. They're so good, like how they're put together. So if you're into like solving crimes and mysteries, give one a try. Because yeah, we did the same thing last year, and we give ourselves like a little goal to solve the case before midnight, which we did. So I was very happy about that. But yeah, it was good. It was a nice little break.
I love the sound of that. Well, great to have you back, Paige. I'm glad you enjoyed the holidays. Hopefully you had a good rest. Back at it now for the PGC grind. And Aaron, what about you? How's your holidays?
Yeah, nice. Thank you. And yeah, Happy New Year to everyone listening. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was quite restful. I got some cool game merch that I've prepared for the podcast. We've got Rowlet, which is one of my favourite Pokemon, possibly after some listeners' time, from 2016. And this was quite cool. I didn't even know this was a thing, but my mum got me this big like box set of like Japanese Zelda CDs. So like that's packed full of CDs.
Oh wow!
Which I still need to listen to. I've just been kind of enjoying looking at the box all nicely sealed so far.
Never opening that.
I keep telling myself I'm going to. Yeah, so no, it was nice. Similar to Paige, I saw some family and stuff. Good. I went out with a few people on New Year's. Generally pretty relaxed. Nothing crazy eventful. I got the tree up in, I think, like the 19th this year or last year now. So that was pretty good going.
Good. That's good.
It was like a full week almost before Christmas.
I feel like that's better than you did the year before. I swear the year before it was like a couple of days before Christmas and you're like, yeah, not done any decorations yet.
Yeah, sometimes it ends up being like the 23rd and then it's... Because I do like having it up, it's just actually getting around to doing it.
It's a little bit depressing when you take it all down though, because I always feel like the house looks like so empty. Where are all the flashing lights and things?
I feel like I've broken the law. I still have my tree up. It's technically, I think the official date is like the 5th of January or something.
Something like that.
So it's still, and I won't be able to, unless I do it like tonight, I won't be able to put it down until Sunday. So looks like you're staying
still
up.
A festive household.
Yeah, with a dying Christmas tree.
Yeah, because you got a real one, didn't you?
I did.
Oh, nice.
I revealed the horror story, so if people want to know the horror story behind my last real Christmas tree, tune into the previous podcast. Just, you only have to listen to the beginning, it's awful. But it didn't happen again this year, thankfully. So, yeah, that would have been, I definitely wouldn't have got a new one again if that happened. All right, cool. Thanks, Aaron. I'm glad you enjoyed the holidays. Yeah, as myself, kind of the same as well. Yeah, family time. I was at my sister's for Christmas. It was lovely. We actually got the Nintendo Wii out and classic, playing some bowling, some tennis. He's 2, my nephew. I was just playing bowling with him. That was quite fun. He enjoyed that very much. And then on New Year's, went to the same place I went to last year because we couldn't find anywhere else. And it's basically like on this farm, so it's set in a barn. And they do it all up for a New Year's party and you pay to go. This year it was slightly, they moved it slightly different. And it's like 0 degrees. I think it was like the feels like temperature was -4 degrees. And everyone is just there wrapped up in their coats and woolly hats and gloves like the entire night. And we knew it was going to be cold anyway. And we got there early so we could try and grab a table, which would have a bit of heating, which is where we were lucky to get. Near the start, my friend just went up to them and said, because basically at the side, instead of walls, it just goes out into the cold. But they had like these little plastic sheets that they could bring down. And my friend went up and said, "Oh, just check it. Like, obviously, like people are cold. Like, are you going to be putting those down later?" And they went, "Oh, yeah, that's a good idea." And then they proceeded to pull one of these sheets down out of like I don't know how many 6, 7, 8, and then that was it. They just left it the rest of the night. So everyone was absolutely freezing, and no one took their coats off. But it was a really good time, despite that.
Yeah, I feel like they didn't really think that through. The fact that their response was, "Oh, that's a good idea."
It's ridiculous. I couldn't believe it. Whatever. It was still good fun. Right, so we'll get into it. As first off, some shout outs. So just the big one, really. Pocket Gamer Connects London, January 19th to 20th. We're all going to be there. So please, if you want to meet us, drop us an email, message on LinkedIn or whatever, and any of us would be happy to meet. And can't wait. We're expecting probably about up to 3,000 people at the show. It will be at the brewery as always, and we're also going to be at a couple summits. The Apps Business Summit and the Transmedia Summit is going to be in the Barbican, which is literally just a couple minutes walk around the corner. And the other thing we've been working on is we've done the top 50 UK game makers list, and we'll reveal that soon. I think we're going to reveal that during the event. So that is of UK developers and publishers across all platforms. We did it last year. Last year, Hello Games was the number one. And you'll have to find out who's going to be the number one soon. But I'll go into a little bit later. Right, so the main theme of this show, we're going to look at like the trends and stories to watch for 2026. Maybe give some predictions if we dare. The first thing I really quickly wanted to do was just look back at a story I wrote last year, which was the big games industry trends and stories to watch in 2025. These weren't predictions, but they were just like, things to look out for. And a couple things actually stuck out to me. People were like, it's going to be hard times ahead. So hard times for small studios and indies, but good times with big publishers. That was probably pretty accurate. I think the industry is back to growth, but definitely for the bigger companies. Not all of them, but definitely for the bigger companies. The Gem Capital MD, Kirill Gursky, said he was cautiously optimistic that the downturn would end, and the emergence of new funds, increased M&A, and more venture activity. I feel like we've seen more private equity. We've seen some investments that we're definitely writing a lot more this year, but I know people are still feeling like how very difficult that is. I spoke about that on a previous podcast when I was at RovioCon. And but some of the trends I wrote, so HTML5 and web games, I feel like that just sort of didn't really happen this year. Maybe it's all cooking in the background. It's like that. That's what you kind of say about Web3. It's all just like the real stuff's happening now, and it just never sort of emerges. There are companies like Pokey around, but yeah, it's not as exciting as it was at like the end of 2024. We spoke about AI. That's definitely been a big thing. We'll talk about that soon. Although Quali, at the time, he's now the Turborilla CEO, John Wright, said that AI will become central to game ideation and design, and predicted in 2025 we'd see the first title where over 50% of its foundation was generated with the tech. I guess like it's definitely been used. I feel like the 50% thing for development hasn't happened, but maybe it has and we don't know. But I feel like that never really happened. Rewarded play. That was I feel like that one again is another one that's kind of sort of it's doing well, but it's not like the hot topic it was last year and kind of at the end of 2024 when you had all these companies emerge. There's definitely still going. There's things happening. That's interesting. Regulatory enforcement, a lot happened there. We'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, there was a few big things this year. Obviously, the App Store being cracked open, the whole Epic doing a lot with Google Play as well, and that's still kind of bumbling away. That's going to in a couple of weeks. I think the judge, Epic and Google are going to court to see what the judge thinks about their new proposals that would base fees around the type of monetization. So Chinese publishers increase their influence. Yeah, I'll go into that as well. So a few things there that did happen, a few things that definitely did. But I've done enough talking, so we're going to jump straight to someone else. So, Aaron, first off, kick us off. What do you think's like the stories to watch or predictions for this year?
Yeah, so firstly, as you were saying, like AI is inevitably going to continue to be a thing. I guess my maybe more interesting prediction is I think bigger companies are going to start to be more brazen about using it. Like it just seems like general like day to day, I'm seeing more people use things like ChatGPT over Google, and even just like basically texting the AI as if it is a person that's going to answer their questions. So I don't know, I think like that feels like it's picked up quite quickly in recent like months. So I guess to bring that back to games, I wonder if we're going to reach a tipping point where a lot more people are just using AI stuff, so there's not going to be the same backlash against companies using it because the general consumer's using it anyway. Whereas I think 2 years ago, then if a company, if a big company was like, "Oh, we're just going to make a game using a load of AI stuff," people would have been more anti that than I think they would today. As you say, I'm still not expecting anyone to come out with it. I don't think a big developer's going to say our game's entirely AI or necessarily even 50%, but just some of the ones that have been more reluctant to do a lot with it. I wonder, whether we're going to see quite an uptick in the amount that do use it this year.
I kind of think I don't know about your prediction about being more brazen. I think weirdly, like the company, so Krafton has obviously been brazen about it, and I think some Asian companies maybe don't have. It depends on the franchise as well, really. And mobile, I think is probably fine to be a lot more brazen about using it. I don't think that will have as much of a kickback, but I think in AAA, I think we'll see a lot more caution about the use of either the use of assets created by generative AI, especially for big IP and franchises. I'm not saying these companies won't use it. I think probably most are somewhere in production or pre-production, but because we've seen, like with Arc Raiders, with Call of Duty, some other, I think there's some others, even Clair Obscur, right? The award show, with respect to the awards, but like I hadn't heard of it before, and then it was everywhere because Clair Obscur had their award taken away because there was one placeholder asset or a couple placeholder assets that were left that were generative AI. So I think the company's going to be very cautious about at least how public they are and using it at a consumer-facing level of what they see. And I think it's right that there's still a lot of animosity towards generative AI that have just brazenly stolen everyone's copyright, and then that's used to kind of effectively. This is a bit of a weird way to put it, I guess, but effectively then steal people's jobs with the work with their own work. So obviously, there's different ways you could do it. I think interesting. Rovio was an interesting example. Pocket Gamer Connect San Francisco, how they basically use their own artists to create the stuff, and then the generative AI tech uses that to kind of build new assets for marketing. And obviously we've seen a lot of it used in creatives. But I think that kind of use is interesting. It's just whether also, if even at that level, I don't know if consumers would have any trust that that's what's been done. That's my thought. Paige?
Yeah, I would agree. I think maybe mobile could get away with being a bit more brazen about it, but yeah, I think like console PC, we've already seen like you said that with the Clair Obscur thing. I remember reading about all of that over the holidays. Like you said, I think they had a couple of placeholder things in that were left. I think they were in the game for like the first week, maybe something like that, and like they got an award taken away from them. There was all of this backlash. So would a company be in a rush to show that they've done that again? Probably not. I also think there's just a lot of like still misunderstanding about AI tools and which AI tools are being used. I think you say that now and everyone instantly thinks, oh, generative AI. Not all AI tools are that. Like some people are building their own in-house stuff. So I think, yeah, it's a year where we're going to see a lot more of it being used, but I think we're still going to see a lot of misunderstanding of how it's used this year. Like, yeah, the Arc Raiders thing, I remember that as well. Like, the instant backlash was, oh my god, it's AI voices, which instantly sounds very bad. Like, that's jobs lost that could go to a voice actor, but then you kind of find out that technically they pay some voice actors allow their voices to be used and they pay for it. So I think it's just another year of just trying to understand this technology more and what are the ethical uses of it and what aren't.
I think ultimately, like, this year and beyond, depending on how big the boom is, but and how practical some of these tools will ultimately be. Ultimately, that keep saying that word, but there will be a lot of use of this somewhere in the game development pipeline and in marketing. Like, it's just going to happen. It's just how much and where it's used will be interesting to see.
And how much they want to say they're using it.
Yeah, exactly. So, Paige, what any trends that you're looking at?
Well, as we mentioned with Pocket Gamer Connects London coming up, we are doing a Beyond Games Transmedia Summit. So that's very on market for what I was going to talk about, which is Transmedia. I don't know why I find this such an interesting subject. I guess maybe because one of my big hobbies is games, and another hobby is like I'm a big movie buff and I enjoy stuff like that. So I think, growing up where I had like the odd game that became a film or a series, but a lot of the time they weren't great, whereas now now it's like they're everywhere. There's so many games that, you know, become movies, TV series, they've got merchandise, they've got comics. You know, I just think that games have become such a big ecosystem outside of just being a game. I know there's a lot of debate about how much these kind of projects actually, you know, give studios in terms of like a revenue, but I don't know if more of the appeal is, you know, sort of about audience reach, you know, reaching them in new ways, finding new audiences, and in general, just keeping an IP more relevant today. Like, I feel like the general consumer today is like, we're quite greedy. We want stuff everywhere. We want to be immersed in the worlds that we like, be it through a book, a show, whatever it may be. So, yeah, I think it's a very easy prediction to make, but yeah, we're going to keep seeing tons more. I think this year, I don't even know how many I could say off the top of my head. I know there's a Mortal Kombat, there's a Silent Hill, Street Fighter, Super Mario Bros. I think there's another Resident Evil like film coming out. I don't know how many of those there
Forgot
even
about
has
that.
been at this point, like another reboot of that series. So yeah, I just think it's going to be another year where we see a lot of transmedia stuff coming from the games industry. I always see people how I know obviously books are still developed into shows and TV a lot, but it's kind of like it's not all books being adapted now. It's just games are like the new go-to, which I thought was quite interesting. So yeah, I think we'll see a lot more that. But then interestingly, I'm putting together a feature at the moment about transmedia stuff, and I think entertainment industry is where your mind goes to. But one of the guys I spoke to was talking about like robotics and AI and things. And yeah, I suppose your mind doesn't always go there, even with like in recent years, like Unreal's been used again in entertainment. But yeah, so with like games and transmedia, it's not always just the entertainment industry. There are other uses for how games technology can be used in other fields, which I think is quite interesting. So yeah, I think PGC, I'm really interested to learn a lot more about that and hear a lot of more insights from people.
I'm looking forward to Mortal Kombat 2 next year. That's the one I want to see. I actually enjoyed the first film. I don't know if it got reviewed that well, but Carl Urban's in it, and there's an amazing trailer for there's like an 80s style fighting scene because he's like the actor Johnny Cage. It's brilliant. So I'm
Yeah,
looking
some
forward
of them
to
are
that.
definitely a guilty pleasure, but it's still really
Yeah.
entertaining, so it works.
Angry Birds 3, of course. The interesting thing that I'm kind of looking forward to is wonder if there's like even more stuff that will happen in Fortnite around like film stuff. So we had the Tarantino, what was it, Kill Bill sort of
Oh, I saw
film.
something on this the other day because I was on PlayStation, and obviously PlayStation has little pop-ups of things that are happening,
Mm.
and I just saw the characters from Pulp Fiction in Fortnite, and I think I just stared at my screen for a second, and I was like, Pulp Fiction in Fortnite? What? Like, I don't even think
It,
like my nephew knows what Pulp Fiction is. But if they
But
say
now he gets to know this 18 rated.
but that is how he'll know it. If I say like, "What's Pulp Fiction?" they'll be like, "It's that thing from Fortnite," and
Wow,
I don't know. That scares me.
that's kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like goes the other way.
so it was the other way around for me. I was watching that like Kill Bill extra thing, and I didn't know there was any like Fortnite connection. And then there's just a bit where like you see like the banana character, and it's like I'm sure isn't that a Fortnite thing? And then it just kind of carried on. And then because like I've not played Fortnite, but there some other just random background characters came up, and then in the credits it was had all these names of the game characters like playing themselves. And I was so confused. Like I was thinking, like, does that mean like all the background characters are like Fortnite characters? And then looked it up afterwards, and it was like, oh, okay, like it makes sense now. But yeah, I had no idea going in, and then so that threw me off a bit.
Yeah, so I'm interested in like the UGC applications in Roblox and Fortnite moving forward, and then it's not much of a prediction from me, but yeah, like you say, I just expect more of it because Sonic seems to be doing very well. There have been some very successful movies. Mario is super successful. Minecraft, and it's not like you can get fatigued from it because they're all different genres and types. So it's not like you get superhero fatigue. It's just they're just different films and or TV shows and experiences. Right, I'm going to move on to another trend. So this one is basically the trend I talked about for 2025, and it will just continue in 2026, which is I think. So I'll keep it fairly brief. I mentioned it in the last show, just before the new year. There's a lot of just before Christmas. So there's a lot of eyes that are going to be on the growth of China's top publishers. We've seen Microfun with Gossip Harbor and the merge space become dominant. First Fun and Century Games with Last War, Out Survival, King Shot, they've become dominant in the Forex strategy space. Infold, released a hit game with Love and Deep Space. I don't even know what I'd call that. I've played it. I don't really know what to call it. It's kind of like a dating sim. I don't know. Anyway, but what's interesting is they're kind of achieving global success, but they're also they're not just competing, they're like surpassing Western publishers and making more money than some of those ever did. Like in the Forex space, that's gone up dramatically. The merge space revenue's gone up dramatically. But I shout out to a UK developer, Magmatic Games, which was, I think it was bought by Moon Active, that made Travel Town, which is maybe even the top merge game in the world. But they're not now the top merge publisher because Microfun has a couple. Anyway, I digress. So that was obviously the big trend of last year. I don't expect it to slow down this year. And it's interesting whether they can make the move to match free. So I was speaking to someone at RovioCon last year, and they were saying that's probably the only thing they haven't cracked yet is the match free space. So I guess we'll see what they do. I have meant to check. I think Century Games has a puzzle game that has released that is doing very well, and it might have been a match free. I think it was a truck based one. I'll look at that while someone else is chatting. But I think it might already start to happen. But obviously we've seen a lot of like success in sort of puzzle in like Turkey with Blast and Match. That's continuing with, say, Pixel Flow, which is like a completely new type of puzzle game, really, which is really interesting. It's like, I don't know how to describe it. You have like these pigs that go around a square and there's an image in the middle, and then you have to shoot the colours and then get rid of the picture. It's the worst explanation. I won't do the marketing for them. But, so I think China, all eyes are on that. And I think Turkey probably continue doing very well. There's a lot of just like, not just in, say, Blast and Match Free, but they're innovating there. So that's quite exciting. And then we'll see basically this year and beyond how Western publishers deal with China having a lot of global success and taking over categories, most importantly. Like, will some Western publishers start to suffer, or was the market big enough to sustain everyone? Even at the rate that Chinese publishers can put out creatives on UA channels. Moving on, Aaron, what else have you got?
Yeah, so I also think there's going to be quite an emphasis on like nostalgia this year, because the games industry has like loads of big anniversaries. So I expect we're going to see like quite a lot of old games come back, with remasters or re-releases, maybe some like old franchises getting like mobile remakes, or across consoles there's a lot that's going to be celebrated this year. So like on the mobile side, this year is 10 years of Pokemon Go, and Clash Royale, I believe, was 2016. So obviously they're both still like big games. I imagine they'll have like big in-game campaigns and stuff going on for their 10-year anniversaries. And then kind of broader games industry anniversaries. A lot of these are kind of based on Japanese release. Like Zelda's 40th anniversary this year, Metroid's 40th, Castlevania's 40th, Sonic's 35 this year, Persona series is 30, Pikmin's 25. So there's like a bunch of franchises there that could lean into their anniversaries, at least in like, a lot of those have mobile games like Persona, Pikmin, Sonic, obviously. Like, I'm sure Sonic Rumble will be doing a 35th anniversary thing. So yeah, I think there's just going to be a lot of kind of excuses for companies to try and draw back older fans through nostalgia, and obviously just an excuse to celebrate and market, really. And just as a little bonus one, because you mentioned playing the Wii at the start of this podcast, Craig, the Wii is 20 this year.
Yeah.
Just so everyone feels nice and fresh and young.
Yeah, 20 years, crazy. The interesting thing about the Wii is I feel like the fact that I don't think I'm the only one that gets that, maybe I am, that gets like the Nintendo Wii out at Christmas. And I know it's not a business to just have this console that comes out once a year at Christmas, but like there's been nothing like it since, right? So I think that feels like there's a market for that kind of experience still. I don't know.
An interesting thing on that you've mentioned it. At my Christmas, somebody mentioned that because one of the presents that me and my partner kind of got collectively for us is we got a VR headset. And when we had family around, we were all playing it, and obviously you can sync it up to the TV so you can all see what the other person's doing. So somebody was playing Beat Saber, or like we had like a mini golf game on it. And someone said like, oh, this is like the futuristic version of the Wii.
I've never heard VR described like this.
Yeah, and it made me giggle. I was like, because I was also like, that didn't cross my mind, but yeah. Okay.
But to describe it like that, it's like the clunkier version of the Wii, because then you have to put on this headset. It's just like, I think it's really cool to play Beat Saber as a group, but then it's also like with a Wii, I don't know, it feels a lot more involved with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always
And
weird because the person that's putting on a VR headset, they're kind of like this strange person over in a corner doing lots of weird things whilst you look at a screen of what they're doing. It's not like it is a shared experience, but I guess like that sort of community feel isn't there as much as it is with the Wii.
so I wonder if there's room to bring back something like that. I know the Kinect was a flop, and I know then it wouldn't be Nintendo, so there's all these things that would make it not work. But the interesting thing is, like in the US, which is something to look out for this year, it's not mobile, but it's the Next Playground, which is done very well. But that kind of targets, I think, like family, kids stuff. So that is kind of an example of trying to bring back this era that has long been ignored in the console space. So maybe that is the solution to the manufacturer problem I've created. But yeah, interesting nostalgia. And actually, just as a real random one while we're here, because you mentioned Clash Royale, I just got to say, I wonder what's going to happen to Supercell in 26, because they can't. I don't foresee them having another big comeback in one of their games. They've done it with Brawl Stars, it's declined. They've done it with Clash Royale. I think Clash Royale is like declined from its peak, but it is holding pretty steady. So they can't do that again. So what they're going to need in the next couple of years is a big new hit. And I've seen a lot on LinkedIn that Supercell they're hiring a bunch of people because of their new games division. And it seems like there's quite a few titles getting greenlit, at least we're being told that publicly. Whether they even hit soft launch Supercell, they maybe won't. They've got Mo.co is still technically not globally launched, even though it is. And then they've got, what was it? I can't remember the other stuff now. Is it Project Rise? Is that still going? Was that cancelled? I can't remember. And then they've got Boat Game in soft launch. There's a few interesting things. I think they need a hit, whether it's 26, 27. I'm curious what the revenue was in 25. We'll know that in February. Maybe it went up, not sure. Because Squad Busters was obviously a failure in the end. The narrative could become by the end of this year, once again, that Supercell's in decline again, and the restructure hasn't worked. I know it takes time, though. But yeah, random aside, I thought that was interesting. And also, we'll see Clash Royale's development into a game, sort of a platform itself, right, which was part of the idea. They brought Clash Mini into it. There's some other games you could play in it. Maybe they'll develop that more for this year. Yeah, Supercell is one to watch. Right, Paige, what else have you got?
Yeah, and just to quickly say on Aaron's thing, I did see a video the other day about it being the 10th anniversary for Pokemon Go, and it kind of blew my mind because I was like, was that 10 years ago? Like, it made me feel really old. I was like, oh no, because I remember like everyone just being out and people were buying battery packs for their phones so they could stay out for longer to catch more Pokemon. Like, that was just a very strange but great time. So
I was
I'm
shocked by
intrigued to see what they
Pikmin
do.
being 25.
Thanks for that, Aaron.
Yeah, that's all right. It makes me feel old as well. I'm getting no victory in this.
It's one of us. But yeah, my next one's it's more of a just an ongoing trend, really, not really a prediction since it's a very glaringly obvious one, but just the continuation of seeing more games going cross-platform, be that they launched on one platform and they implement it later, or they're just designed from the get-go to be cross-platform. I think it kind of coincides with the transmedia stuff that audiences want their games in a multitude of ways. We want to be able to play things and continue playing things. If I'm playing it on a high-end PC at home, great, but then if I'm on the way to work, maybe I want to be able to play that same game on my mobile. And as a sort of continuation of cross-platform, I think there's also the whole cross progression thing. Like, people don't want to have a game on their console and then play it on mobile and PC and have to start again. They want it all in one place. So yeah, I think just more of that being developed in mind from the get-go. Obviously more challenging to develop for multiple platforms, but I think because players expect it more now, it's becoming more of a necessity. It's about reach, but it's also about retention. Like, I think so many of the most popular games now aren't always new releases. People play a new game and they finish it in 2 weeks and then that they don't think about it again. Whereas there's certain games that people play every single day and they've been playing that game for 2 years. So if you can do that in multiple places, there's more chance that you do keep coming back. And yeah, I think like years ago, if a game came out on a certain platform, you just accepted that that's the platform it was on. Whereas now I feel like as soon as a new game is announced, you see so many people being like, oh, well, what other platforms is it coming on? Oh, if it's cross-platform, is it cross-progression? It's just an immediate thing people ask. I think obviously for PC console, it's a lot more expected. I am intrigued sort of this year and beyond, if we do start to see more mobile games having some sort of presence elsewhere, whether that's, like I said, just being designed from the get-go, or if it's mobile games, that started mobile and then they eventually come to console PC. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see if we see more of that. I suspect that we will.
Yeah, what was interesting is I looked at the Steam top sellers for 2025, and I noticed that there's so much crossover, whether it's like kind of the same game brought to mobile or the other way around to PC, or like sort of adaptations, just IPs being taken. There's so many, and I'll quickly name like a few of them, like Black Desert Online, Delta Force, Once Human, PUBG Mobile, Rust Mobile is like the new one that's been in testing that should come out soon. Stardew Valley, Uma Musume, Pretty Derby, War Thunder, Warframe Mobile, Wuthering Waves, Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, and then there's a bunch more like French IPs. So it's very much cross-platform future. What I'm curious to see this year, mostly, like if I was to be specific, will Xbox like properly reveal its plans for what it's actually doing with its next sort of era, I guess, for Game Pass and its hardware business, because their plan is to play everything is an Xbox, and I'm curious like how they pitch that. I imagine that will be pitched this year, but we'll see.
Yeah, I expect this year there'll be some kind of Xbox restructuring story somewhere. Also, obviously, there's the Steam. They're having like a console version come out, so that's quite interesting. Is it the Steam Machine? Is that what it's called? But yeah, so I think that'll be interesting too.
Yeah, so it's definitely a really interesting one to be keep an eye on this year. We've got a few more, so I'll try and rattle through some. Every time I say that, it's when I say it the longest. So the next one I did quickly want to look at was it's not a prediction, but like is global politics, and part of that includes regulations, which we covered quite extensively last time. Regulation is a big one to watch this year. So on that front, I don't know if we'll hear more about the EU's Digital Fairness Act this year. I can't remember when that's due. The consultation period for that ended last year. Maybe we'll hear a bit more about kind of the negotiations that are going on in the background there, because that could very much impact, as Ilkka Paananen said, like the future of Europe's mobile games industry if it goes wrong. And then the other things to look out for I mentioned earlier is so Epic had obviously favorable rulings against App Store and Google Play in the US. The App Store won't be quite as free as it was going to be, so I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but it expects like basically fees, even for direct consumer potentially there. And then Google Play, I mentioned that earlier, we'll see what happens in just a couple of weeks, the latest on that. And then online safety is a big thing. We'll talk about Roblox, got like the Face ID stuff now, which is interesting. And then you've got wider regulation for social media, which is like bans in Australia. There could be more on that, and then that ultimately impacts marketing, so that's one to look out for. And then obviously there's a lot of tension around the world really at the moment, with the US, China, Russia, and the EU, various kind of all at each other, except for Russia and China seem pretty close. But even like the US is trying to take Greenland at the moment, it would seem. But the interesting thing about that is how could that impact the tech and game space? So, for example, tensions before for tariffs, maybe they'll make a comeback. That impacts like hardware for phones and consoles and pricing. Then obviously with TikTok, so there was a new legislation passed in Congress a while back that banned TikTok, but not all they had to, or ByteDance had to sell it. That's kind of been resolved now. But it also meant for any big platform, basically from China, owned by foreign entities. So maybe that could make another sort of comeback this year for something else. You don't know. These things can kind of spill out in any way. And I remember, for example, there's a dispute between China and South Korea about a missile defense system called, I can't pronounce properly, but THAAD. And that was supplied by the US. So China unofficially banned South Korean games being released in the country. And that lasted for quite a few years. And then obviously India banned a lot of China apps because there's border disputes there. And I think they were a little bit worried about China dominance over their mobile market, and they wanted to uplift their own local companies, which is my take. So I think this year is something to really look out for. How any regulation, but also how global politics in general and the things that are happening could potentially spill over into games. And one thing I wanted to mention earlier that I forgot was like with I think we spoke about AI, and so the weird ways that even that can impact the industry outside of just AI. So, for example, I bought some RAM in August, cost me £100. That's 32 GB of RAM. I just looked yesterday at the cost of the same RAM that I bought on Amazon. It was £200. It's doubled. And there have been warnings as well, like, GPU is going to cost more, RAM's going to cost more because they're fueling these AI companies. And the knock-on effect of that is then, and we've heard some reports, which is the console manufacturers will start worrying now because the RAM's going to cost them more and they already sell hardware at a loss. So what does that delay the release of future consoles? A lot of things are quite interesting at the moment. Would it affect like manufacturing of phones? Yeah. So lots interesting going on for politically down to AI in ways that you just don't expect. So a bit of a rubbish prediction, isn't it? Expect the unexpected this year. It's just interesting. So Paige, I think you had one more thing.
Yeah, just a quick one I'll go through, which was just, I don't know if it's more of a trend, I guess. Obviously, like last year, we saw a lot, like you mentioned, with like new regulations and things. And as a part of that, we saw a lot of, studios doing their own web shops. And I just expect that this year we will see more of that. The obvious is it's a way to get more revenue and avoid platform fees elsewhere. But I think it's also about having sort of like that direct control and connection with the audience. And, you can determine the pricing, what bundles or promotions are on offer, and, all that kind of stuff. So, I just expect it's something we'll see more of. I know last year, we did quite a few stories like covering different web stores and things. I think there was quite a mixed bag of results for what we've seen from web stores. So I think for me, it's more of a curiosity of, from the sort of mixed bag we saw last year and what we will see this year, does it start to skew more positive as like they're getting more used to using these, or if it's still going to be a bit of a year of discovery for that?
So I did some research based on the last quarter of financials, just like Q3, and it was like a record year for a few of the big publishers, well, direct to consumer. Sorry, a record quarter for some of the big publishers because of, I think, some of in the US when like the stores being cracked open, and plus just a general more investment going into direct to consumer. So for Playtika, D2C revenue grew 20% year over year and 19% quarter on quarter to a record $209 million in Q3. That pushed the total share of player spending on its own platform to 31%. So in the previous quarter, it was 25.3%, and then in Q3 the previous year, it was like 28%. So that's gone up quite a lot. MTG, they broke company records. 26% of revenue was coming from their D2C platform. Stillfront said that 44% of net revenue now comes from their D2C initiatives versus 33% in Q3 2024. So there's a lot. No, I'm not saying everyone's succeeding at it, but it's definitely noticeable. And then I'll go back to the regulatory changes again. Like, I wonder what the uplift was from the App Store decision in the US, that you could link out freely, and if that's going to change soon, what these financials will look like in the coming quarters. We won't see that in the Q4, so the next round, but maybe depending on when the judge, I guess, makes a decision with Apple, maybe Q1, Q2, Q3, we might see a slowing down or a different story depending on what happens there. But yeah, obviously D2C is like the eternal trend these days. Okay, I've got one more, and then we're going to stop. So one thing that I have been looking at. So I mentioned earlier we're going to reveal the top 50 UK game makers. I must say, like, I think this year could be pretty big for UK games developers, not necessarily specifically on mobile, but there is that potential as well. For example, Facepunch Studios working with Level Infinite on Rush Mobile. I think that's going to launch properly this year. So that's like a big one. Won't it? GTA 6 might launch in 2026. Obviously a big studio, probably the biggest game in the world from Rockstar North up in Scotland. I mean, this probably won't come out, but Hello Games is working on, is it Light No Fire or something like that? So maybe, I don't think that's expected. That could be a big one. And then one of the other big games, Playground Games, Fable. It's probably might come out this year, might get delayed again. And then also
come out this year.
You're looking forward to that one?
Yes, I'm a big Fable fan.
And, so that might come out, and then I think they're also releasing the latest Forza Horizon, maybe Forza Horizon 6, and those do very well. Jagex already did the early access of RuneScape Dragon Wilds. but that full launch is going to come out this year. We've got some other really successful studios doing stuff. Dovetail, Frontiers doing stuff. I think Planet Zoo 2? But that's going to be 2027, so just misses 26. And then I think there's a bunch of others, but like it's going to be a really huge year. And then there's still a lot of other kind of cool and successful games being worked on. Obviously, we'll reveal the full list, and I'll write another article with it, I think, when we announce. But yeah, I think it could be a big year for UK. Again, not necessarily mobile, but also to remember, we do have big mobile companies here, Playdemic, Golf Clash is here. Triple Dot has now become one of the world's biggest mobile publishers with the acquisition of Vatlov's games business. Maybe we'll hear more about that integration if that's been successful, because it was quite a big change for them. So yeah, pretty excited for the UK games sector as we approach PGC London. And the things we didn't really touch upon here, but they're kind of like ongoing trends really. It's obviously UGC, Roblox Fortnite. We were talking about that anyway, but Grow a Garden's still a brain rot. Will we see some more consistency with like more games hitting those like high concurrent user numbers? Will we see more of that this year? I think that's I'm very interested to see. Basically, Roblox is as big a platform as any. You just have to see if it gets banned in any more countries. So they're obviously trying very hard to appease, I guess, regulators and parents, most importantly. That is a safe platform to use. We'll see if they achieve that. I guess I'll just do a shout out now. We're going to launch like a newsletter for UGC because I'm really excited about the space. Want to learn a lot more about it, and I don't think there's enough reported on it. So keep an eye out for that. We'll have a form soon to kind of pre-register for that. But yeah, if you want to talk about UGC at PGC London, please hit me up. And then obviously non-gaming, we've got the Apps Business Summit, and Duolingo is doing a lot of really cool stuff. Expect more crossovers from them this year. They did the Genshin Impacts crossover, so I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And just in general, I'm curious how much like non-gaming like revenue grows versus gaming, and then if there's some way that impacts the games industry. Do more publishers start focusing even more on like non-gaming stuff, which is something we've seen. EA had the EA Sports app, but it was like general like news and scores for football stuff. Krafton's been investing in short video. I think some others have. Winzo Gaming was also investing in short video. But there's some other examples, can't remember off the top of my head. Voodoo has social apps, right? So like the expertise is there to make these things. I'm just curious what we'll see about that in 2026. Okay, we'll stop there. Thank you everyone for listening to the show. Thank you for joining us for the new year. Happy New Year once again. Hope you all have a great year ahead. And as always, thank you, Aaron, for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you. Good to be here.
And thank you, Paige, for being on the show. It's great to have you back. Hopefully we'll have more of you this year.
Yeah, it's nice to be back.
And we'll be back again next week. We'll do a pre-PGC show and talk about the week's news, maybe some of the stories that we've missed from this week. So with that, have a great weekend, and hopefully we'll see you at PGC. But if not, we'll see you soon. Goodbye.